Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. I was drugged by my own dear brother and placed on the bed of his closest friend Xiaoya. After a night of disgrace, he was forced to marry me, but his eyes held nothing but disgust. As for the one he truly loved, Lin Shui, she became my sister-in-law. I naively believed that familiarity would breed affection. Yet, in the second year of marriage, Lin Shui died of melancholy, and the entire Zhang family was slaughtered. Xiaoya suddenly became exceedingly gentle toward me, and foolishly, I thought he had finally seen my feelings until that arrow pierced through my chest. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to that night when I was drugged. Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe to us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. My eyes flew open. The pain from being pierced by an arrow still lingered in my body. But the next moment, waves of scorching heat surged through my heart. I pulled out a silver hairpin and stabbed my thigh. The sharp pain brought me temporary clarity. I pushed open the window and climbed out, taking a detour around the side. I indeed saw my elder brother's personal maid, Peony, hiding behind a pillar, secretly observing this area, quietly approaching me from behind. I knocked her unconscious with a vase I'd casually picked up earlier. I dragged her inside, stripped off her clothes, and changed into them myself. I stuffed my elder brother's jade pendant into my bosom. Brother, enjoy the grand gift your little sister has prepared for you. In my past life, my own brother, Zhang Helen, drugged me and delivered me to the bed of his dearest friend, Xiaoya. A night of madness ensued. Xiaoya was forced to marry me, yet he hated me to the bone. The woman he loved, Lin Shui, became my sister-in-law. I thought time could nurture affection. In the second year of their marriage, Lin Shui died of melancholy. Within half a year, the entire Zhang family was exterminated overnight, and at the height of his success, he pierced my heart with an arrow. When I woke again, I had returned to the moment before all the tragedies began. I climbed over the wall to find the male brothel, but stumbled instead into Gon's largest pleasure house, Misty Rain Pavilion. Miss, you've come to the wrong place. A lazy voice sounded above my head. I looked up and met a pair of smiling peach blossom eyes. The most notorious playboy in Jinling Qin Shua. In my past life, I detested him the most without exception. Yet at this moment he actually looks so refined and handsome. You're exactly who I was looking for. I grabbed him by the collar and kissed him. When golden wind meets Jeju, one encounter surpasses countless worldly moments. Before dawn broke, I hastily gathered my skirts and fled. Little did I know, my crab-apple blossom earrings had been left behind on the bed. When I climbed back over the wall to return home, the morning dew had yet to dry. A few damp footprints remained on the desolate moss of the western courtyard, soon evaporated by the rising sun. Pushing open the chamber door, Chua rushed forward with swollen red eyes. Miss, where were you last night? This servant was scared to death. Gazing at Chua's youthful face, I felt a momentary daze. In my past life, Xiaoya took in a concubine who bore a striking resemblance to Lin Shui, doting on her endlessly. Later, the concubine falsely accused me of causing her miscarriage. Xiaoya didn't even listen to my explanation and directly convicted me. It was Chua who stepped forward to take the blame for me. Before her death, she wept just like this. Miss, live well and leave the Song residence. Chua, I gently wiped away her tears, my fingertips brushing against her warm cheeks. In this lifetime, I will surely protect you. The little maid froze in shock. Help me remove my makeup. I changed the subject with a yawn. That bastard Qin Shua insisted on arguing about who should be on top last night, leaving me sore and exhausted. Does anyone else in the manor know I was absent last night? Chua shook her head. This servant didn't dare make it known. I only searched for you quietly alone. Her gaze swept over the red marks on my neck before she tactfully lowered her eyes. Huh? What's wrong? I looked at Chua. Missing one of your earrings. I didn't pay it much mind. Maybe it fell somewhere. As the hot water cascaded over my body, I let out a soft hiss. Who would have thought that playboy Qin Shua would have such a good physique? What a waste. At the third quarter of the morning hour, while the northern courtyard buzzed with commotion, I was carefully drawing my eyebrows before the mirror. Miss, the north garden. Chua rushed in anxiously. I leisurely set down the eyebrow pencil, my fingertips brushing against the red mark beneath my silk scarf. No need to hurry. Let the fire burn a little brighter. In my past life at this very moment, I had just woken up disheveled from Sun Xia's bed, facing a room full of scornful gazes. And today let's go. It's time to watch the grand show I've prepared for my brother. The main house of the north courtyard was surrounded by servants. I arrived right on time, just in time to see Jiang Helen grabbing Song Xiaoya by the collar and roaring, "How dare you lay a hand on my sister? How can you face Shui?" I paused mid-step, my nails digging deep into my palms. My dear brother, even at a time like this, the one on his mind is still his Lin Shui. I pushed open the door. The room was in complete disarray. Xia sat gloomily by the bed, his inner robe wide open, revealing his muscular chest. And the one weeping with bowed head on the couch was none other than P, dressed in my clothes. "What are you two arguing about, brother?" I leaned lazily against the doorframe, my voice still soft and drowsy from sleep. Two pairs of eyes simultaneously pierced in my direction. Jiang Helen's expression was absolutely priceless. Shock, astonishment, panic, and Song Xiaoya. Those perpetually aloof eyes fixed on me with deadly intensity before slowly shifting to the peony on the bed. His voice as cold as ice. "Who are you?" P raised her head. Her face streaked with tears like rain-drenched pear blossoms. "Lord Song drank too much last night and grabbed this servant. I couldn't break free." "Is that so?" Song Xiaoya's gaze turned terrifyingly dark. "This can't be." Jiang Helen's face turned ashen when he saw it was Xiaoya in the bed. "But I clearly—" He suddenly fell silent and gave me a terrified glance. I walked slowly to the table and poured myself a cup of tea, the jade bracelet on my wrist tinkling softly. "Shiren." He forced a calm tone and asked gently, "Where were you last night?" I met his gaze with an innocent smile. "I was in my room all night, but brother, didn't you say you'd admire the moon with me? How come you got drunk first?" Song Xiaoya keenly noticed Jiang Helen's unusual gaze, his eyes darting between me and Jiang Helen before finally settling on my neck. There was a red mark left by Zhu. His pupils constricted abruptly. A jade pendant suddenly crashed at Jiang Helen's feet. The crisp shattering sound startled the peony into trembling. The jade pendant was close to my brother's heart. "Jiang Helen." He enunciated each word deliberately. "You're truly a master schemer." I lowered my head to conceal my smile. How entertaining to watch dogs bite each other. "No, this isn't." Jiang Helen frantically picked up the jade pendant, suddenly pointing at Xiaoya. "It's her. This wretched maid must have stolen my jade pendant." Xiaoya's face turned deathly pale. "Young master, it was clearly you who ordered this servant." "Silence." Jiang Helen slapped her across the face, cutting off Xiaoya's unfinished words. I watched this farce with cold eyes. In her past life, Jiang Helen had personally forced Peony to drink poison to silence her. Now, seeing her turn on Jiang Helen was unexpectedly satisfying. Song Xiaoya rose leisurely, his black robe sweeping over the mess on the floor. He walked up to me, still carrying the lingering scent of last night's alcohol. "Miss Jiang." He leaned in and whispered in my ear, his warm breath brushing over that red mark. "I truly underestimated you." I raised my eyes to meet his gaze, seeing my own composed smile reflected in his pitch-black pupils. "What are you talking about, young master Song?" I blinked deliberately with faint confusion. "Shiren doesn't understand." He let out a cold laugh and stormed off with a flick of his sleeve. Jiang Helen chased after him for a few steps before turning back to grab my wrist. "It was you, wasn't it? You're the one who tampered with the peonies." "Brother." I gently withdrew my hand and smoothed the wrinkles on his collar for him. "You should think about how to explain to father why your personal jade pendant ended up in Xiaoya's embrace." Watching his face instantly turn deathly pale, I leaned close to his ear and whispered in a voice only we could hear. "And also how to explain it to your beloved Shui." As I turned to leave, Jiang Helen grabbed my arm. "Shuiren," my brother said with a cheerful smile. "What are those marks on your neck?" The room fell silent for a moment. I flusteredly covered my neck, my cheeks flushing red. "A mosquito bit me last night." Jiang Helen's eyes darkened slightly as he was about to ask more. "Young master." The butler suddenly rushed in anxiously. "Young Master Qin is here." My heart skipped a beat. Chin shows her. What's he doing here? Could he have found out? In the front hall, Chin shows her, clad in a deep crimson brocade robe, was idly toying with a crab apple blossom earring. Noticing our entrance, he raised his phoenix-like eyes with a charming, unrestrained smile. Miss Jiang, I wonder if you recognize this earring. I panicked for a moment, then quickly composed myself. I picked up the teacup and took a delicate sip. I don't know him. Oh, my apologies for disturbing you. Chin Shoza stood up gracefully but suddenly turned back at the doorway. If Miss Jiang remembers anything. He glanced meaningfully at my neck. You're always welcome to visit the Qin residence. When that crimson figure disappeared, Jiang Helen grabbed my wrist abruptly. Little sister, what remarkable skills you have. I shook off his hand coldly. What are you talking about, brother? Your sister doesn't understand. The spring banquet of Jinling City had always been a grand event where talented scholars and beautiful ladies gathered. I leaned against the vermilion pillar, watching coldly as Lin Shui approached through the falling petals. She wore a plain white gauze dress with only a magnolia hairpin adorning her hair, as elegant as a fairy from a painting. Shui, my brother Jiang Helen, rushed toward her, unable to conceal the joy on his face. Even more laughable was Sayaya, that man who had always been aloof and self-restrained, now actually quickening his steps to meet her. His eyes brimmed with a tenderness I had never seen before. Men in our past life. When Lin Shui returned, Sun Xiaoya had already been forced to marry me. She stood outside the wedding hall, her eyes blurred with tears as she said, "Wishing you a lifetime of happiness together," then turned away and fell ill for 3 months, only deepening Xi's hatred toward me. But in this life, Shui, how did you? Say Xiaoya reached out to Lin Shui's hair, but she dodged his hand. Xi froze in place. Brother. Lin Shui's affectionate eyes, brimming with tears, gazed at Xia. I came back as soon as I got your letter. Xi frowned tightly. I've never written. I heard it the moment I entered the city. Lin Shui interrupted him, heartbroken. That you slept with Heilong's personal maid. The entire garden erupted in shock. She lowered her head, then raised it again, her tears falling like hammer blows upon the hearts of every man present. I noticed several young gentlemen could no longer restrain themselves, their eyes brimming with heartache. After all, she wasn't just Jinling's most beautiful maiden, but also the most celebrated talented woman south of the Yangtze. With all characters assembled, the grand performance began. Say Xiaoya pulled Lin Shui to the edge of the pond. Brother, you're hurting me. Lin Shui tried to break free from Say Xiaoya's grip. Shui, let me explain. Xiaoya instinctively released her hand. Lin Shui took half a step back, a movement that instantly froze Xiaoya in place. She then threw herself into Jiang Helen's arms, weeping pitifully. Brother Helen, is what they said really true? Jiang Helen patted her back gently while casting a provocative glance at Xi. As for Say Xiaoya, his face had darkened to the point where it seemed water could drip from it. How splendid! I took a sip of peach blossom wine, hiding a smile at the corner of my lips. That handwritten letter from Xia was actually my masterpiece. 3 nights spent meticulously copying his handwriting. In my past life, to win Xiaoya's favor, I copied his calligraphy for half a year, filled with hope to earn even a shred of his favor, only to be met with his cold words. You will never compare to Shui. Shun, are you enjoying this show? Qin Shouza's lazy voice sounded above me. Then his presence enveloped me without warning. He had appeared behind me unnoticed, his crimson robe brushing against my wrist, his warm breath carrying the scent of pine and wine as it grazed my ear. I stiffened, forcing composure as I feigned confusion and asked, What are you talking about, young Master Qin? I don't understand. Imitating Xi's handwriting to recall Lin Shui ahead of time, his lips nearly brushed against the shell of my ear, having the white moonlight witness her beloved's betrayal firsthand. Now that's truly adding insult to injury. My heartbeat suddenly accelerated. How did he? I pondered silently, lowering my gaze as a thought flashed through my mind. Should I just kill him? But then I thought again. His skills were excellent, far better than Sun Xiaoya's. I felt a bit reluctant to let go. What are you thinking about? Qin Shouza seemed to notice my unusual behavior and suddenly gripped my chin, forcing me to meet his gaze. I brushed off his hand, a sly smile curling at the corners of my lips as I crooked a finger at him. He leaned down until we were face to face, our noses almost touching, his warm breath washing over me. "Young Master Chin, this reputation of yours as a wastrel has fooled everyone," I said provocatively. "Same here. Outsiders all say the Jiang family's legitimate daughter is virtuous and exemplary, a model for all women. But seeing you today," he deliberately drew out his words, looking at me provocatively. "In my past life it was precisely these 4 words, virtuous and exemplary, that became like heavy shackles binding me for a lifetime. In my past life, because of these 4 words, I endured 3 months of Xiaoya's silent treatment. Because of these 4 words, Lin Shui repeatedly made things difficult for me in front of Xia. Because of these 4 words, I helped Xia take in concubine after concubine. In this life, I shall be a wantonly reckless enchantress." I raised an eyebrow. Well, before I could finish speaking, he suddenly kissed me, a kiss that carried an irresistible force. I lifted my hand to hit him, but he caught it firmly. "Damn bastard." I cursed silently in my heart, glaring at him with furious eyes, yet he completely disregarded my anger, the corners of his lips curling slightly as he pressed forward, making the kiss even more fervent and deep. Furious, I didn't hesitate to bite his lip. He winced slightly but didn't retreat. Instead, he kissed me more forcefully, his deep eyes brimming with teasing, indulgent amusement, as if he was thoroughly enjoying this contest with me. Gradually, I felt my breath becoming rapid and labored. Meanwhile, the faint sound of Lin Shui's intermittent sobs reached my ears along with Zhang Helen's gentle, deep voice offering comfort. As the kiss ended, my legs went weak and I collapsed into his arms. He chuckled lowly, his chest vibrating, while his fingers mischievously pinched my waist to keep me from sliding down. "Want something more exciting?" he whispered in my ear, his voice low and seductive. Before I could react, I saw his fingers flick. The stone hit Lin Shui's knee with perfect precision. Plop! Her legs gave way and she plunged headlong into the pond. Zhang Helen's face turned pale instantly, and he leaped into the water without hesitation. Song Xiaoya also rushed over like a madman, but Zhang Helen was closer. He swiftly scooped up Lin Shui first. Her soaked dress clung tightly to her body, revealing every curve. The pond side was crowded with onlookers buzzing with gossip. Heavens, it's young Master Jiang carrying Miss Lin. This such intimate contact. Doesn't that mean, didn't they say young Master Song and Miss Lin were deeply in love? This is going to be quite a show. Lin Shui's face turned deathly pale, her entire body trembling as Zhang Helen carried her ashore against her will. Song Xiaoya stood dripping wet on the bank, his eyes dark with terrifying intensity. The corners of my lips curled upward. Success, though I didn't design it. The outcome is exactly what I wanted. Lin Shui is destined to marry my brother again in this lifetime. The 3 of them, one hypocritical, one selfish and one malicious, are perfect for tormenting each other. I turned to look at Qin Shouza only to find him staring at me with an unsettling half-smile. His gaze was terrifyingly profound. I always feel like he's doing it on purpose. How did he know about my plan? Could he have been reborn as well? My heart skipped a beat. Impossible. Suppressing my doubts, I smoothed my dress and flashed him a radiant smile. "Mr. Qin, I'm quite satisfied with your skills." With that, I turned and walked away, unaware of the fleeting shadow that passed through his eyes. Zhang Helen and Lin Shui's wedding was hastily arranged yet extravagantly lavish. Disguised as a servant, I slipped into the wedding procession and watched as old Lin sat stiffly in the place of honor, his face twitching with every congratulatory word. The son-in-law he had favored was originally Song Xiaoya, but now his gaze swept over Zhang Helen, clad in the bright red wedding robes, and ultimately dissolved into a sigh. No matter how far the Jiang family has fallen, it remains a century-old aristocratic lineage. 3 generations of ancestors served as prime ministers, and the hall was adorned with an imperial plaque bestowed by the late emperor. When Song Xiaoya arrived, the entire hall of guests fell silent in an instant. He was dressed in plain white, standing out starkly against the overwhelming sea of red. Lin Shui was being helped by the bridesmaid to step over the fire basin when she heard Song Xiaoya had arrived. The footsteps beneath the bridal veil abruptly halted, then turned back through the swaying beaded curtain. Their gazes collided. Her tears fell with a whoosh, splashing onto the wedding gown and spreading like ink. Lin Shui instinctively stepped forward, only to be blocked by Zhang Helen's imposing figure. Xiaoya! Zhang Helen's fingers turned white as they gripped the wine cup. Today is my joyous occasion. Let me toast you. All the guests craned their necks, their eyes gleaming with anticipation for a spectacle. I caught a glimpse of my parents' grim expressions in the main hall, and had to dig my nails into my palms to keep from laughing aloud. Shueran, as the legitimate daughter of the Jiang family, you must be virtuous and gentle. My father's words from my past life still echoed in my ears. At that time Lin Shui deliberately knocked over the ginseng soup I had stewed for him, scolding my hand until it turned red and swollen. Yet my father scolded me. Lin Shui is frail. Don't argue with her. Later, I knelt before the Jiang family's gate, begging my father to save me from the living hell of the Song household. A married daughter is like spilled water. My father refused to see me, shutting the door. Don't come back and disgrace us. And now, father stiffly accepted the congratulations, the veins at his temples throbbing visibly. Zhang Helen, his face ashen, dragged Lin Shui through the wedding ceremony. The red silk between them pulled taut. How exhilarating. I threw back my head and drained the cup, the burning satisfaction in my throat nearly overflowing. Lin Shui. This is just the beginning. On their wedding night, Zhang Helen struck Lin Shui. The news had already spread throughout the Jiang family by last night. They say the young master wanted to consummate the marriage, but the young mistress refused to the death and even scratched the young master's face. Spring Snow lowered her voice, her eyes sparkling with excitement. The young master was furious. He slapped her so hard that the young mistress hit the corner of the bed, and a huge bruise swelled on her forehead. I stirred the bird's nest soup in my bowl leisurely, the corners of my lips curling slightly. At dawn, Lin Shui came to serve tea with a bruise still visible on her temple, dressed in bright red robes. She couldn't conceal her haggard appearance. Zhang Helen stood beside her, dark circles under his eyes and his lips pressed tightly together, clearly having stayed awake all night. Father, mother, please have some tea. Lin Shui knelt on the prayer mat, offering the tea with both hands. Her father took the teacup and responded with a cold hum, not even bothering to look at her properly. Mother didn't answer for a long time. It was Zhang Helen who couldn't bear to see Lin Shui kneeling any longer and called out, "Mother!" After accepting the tea, Mother took a thick booklet from the matron beside her and threw it in front of Lin Shui. Jiang Family Rules Chapter on Women's Virtues. Since you've entered the Jiang family, you must abide by the Jiang family's rules. Study carefully. I'll test you in 3 days. Lin Shui's fingertips trembled. Yet she had no choice but to lower her head. Yes. Lin Shui looked at me and forced a smile. Shuan, little sister. This is your sister-in-law's greeting gift. I reached out to take it, my fingertips brushing against it for a fleeting moment. Slap. The jade bracelet fell to the ground, shattering into 2 pieces. Oh no! I exclaimed, my eyes instantly welling up with tears. If you didn't want to give it to me, sister-in-law, you could have just said so. Why do this and make everyone think I'm unhappy about you becoming my sister-in-law? Lin Shui's face darkened abruptly. You! The gazes of everyone in the hall were like knives, all piercing into Lin Shui. Her chest heaved violently, and she could no longer hold back. Suddenly standing up, Zhang Xuan, it was clearly you who did it on purpose. I shrank back, lowering my head and twisting my handkerchief. Sister-in-law, please don't be angry. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have said anything. Zhang Helen sternly tried to stop her, but it was already too late. Father slammed the table and stood up. Madam Lin, is this how you were raised? Throwing a tantrum in front of your parents-in-law? Lin Shui's face turned deathly pale. Zhang Helen grabbed her wrist and forced her to kneel. Apologize to father at once. Mother gave Lin Shui a cold glance and said, copy the family rules 100 times and bring them to me tomorrow. By noon, the whole Jiang household had heard of the incident. The newlywed young mistress, displeased with the rules set by her in-laws, publicly humiliated her sister-in-law. They say the young mistress even called the matriarch harsh to her face. More than that, I saw it with my own eyes. She dared to talk back to the master himself, sitting in the pavilion. I listened to the maid's exaggerated gossip while leisurely sipping my tea. In the distance, Lin Shui stood alone beneath the corridor, clutching the family rules tightly in her hands. She had left. I stood at the top of the city tower, watching the departing carriage, my fingertips digging into my palms. In my past life, he had been the top scholar in this very imperial examination. The Jiang family's calamity of extermination was also fast approaching. The household was in constant chaos day after day. Lin Shui was tormented by her mother until she was barely human. She had to attend to morning ablutions before dawn, was punished with kneeling if meals slightly displeased her taste, and endured Zhang Helen's humiliations late into the night. Lin Shui, who are you trying to fool with your false purity? That day, everyone had already seen everything. In just a month, she had withered away to a shadow of herself. Those eyes that once enchanted all the young masters of Jinling now held nothing but venom. As for me, I was thoroughly enjoying myself. Today a poetry gathering, tomorrow a flower viewing banquet. Even mother was surprised. Shuan has been looking rather well lately. I smiled faintly, catching sight of Lin Shui's hand clutching her handkerchief in my peripheral vision. Does it hurt? But this is not even 1/10,000th of what I endured in my past life. In her past life, Song Xiaoya remained chaste for Lin Shui and never touched me after marriage. Seeing my belly remain unchanged, Mother Song sneered daily. A hen that can't lay eggs. Just taking up the rightful wife's position. Driven to desperation, I had no choice but to imitate Lin Shui's style. Moon-white gauze dress. Magnolia hairpin. Even the incense was changed to her favorite scent of cedar. I carried the ginseng soup and gently pushed open the study door. Husband, it's late at night. C looked up, his gaze instantly turning bone-chilling. A poor imitation of the beautiful. He smashed the soup bowl, the scalding broth splashing onto the back of my hand. Take it off. I froze in place. What? Take off that dress. He stood up and approached, his eyes filled with disgust. How dare you try to imitate her? I took half a step back, but he grabbed my collar. Rip. The gauze skirt was torn open. See ya. I frantically clutched my collar. Have you lost your mind? Lost my mind. He sneered, gripping my throat. If you hadn't drugged and schemed against me, why would I have married you? And why would Shui have married your worthless brother? Take it off. I desperately clung to my clothes, refusing to let go. But he tore at them with brute force. At last, I was driven out of the study, clad only in a plain white sleeping robe, with all hairpins fallen loose. Barefoot, I walked the long gallery. Servants snickered from the sidelines while the matrons pointed and whispered. Look, the madam has been thrown out again. Tried to imitate Miss Shun's dressing style, only to bring shame upon herself. By the next day, the news had spread throughout all of Jinling. Madame Song, shamelessly attempting to seduce her husband late at night, was driven out of his chambers. Late at night, Qin Shouza climbed through the window again, reeking of alcohol as he pinned me down on the bed. Guess who I saw today at Drunken Immortal Pavilion? I pushed him away and asked nonchalantly. Who? He nibbled my earlobe and chuckled. Your dear brother was dining with a woman at Drunken Immortal Pavilion. In my past life, Zhang Helen had always loved Lin Shui and never took a concubine. I lowered my head to hide the calculation in my eyes. After all, that girl was specially prepared for my brother. In every aspect, she bore an uncanny resemblance to the former Lin Shui. The white moonlight had finally become frost on the ground. Pleased with myself, I let Qin Shua take the lead. After that, Qin Shouza came to my chamber every night. Sometimes he brought news. Other times he said nothing at all, just pressed close to me until dawn. Zhang Shueran. He gripped my wrist that night, his breath scorching. When do you plan to give me a proper status? I chuckled lightly. Never thought about it. He paused mid-motion. If you're unwilling. I deliberately provoked him. I can find someone else. Before I could finish speaking, he had already rolled off the bed, grabbed his outer robe and left without looking back. That departure lasted half a month. I told myself I shouldn't care. Yet, whenever night falls and silence reigns, hearing the wind outside the window, I'd instinctively look up, only to never see that familiar crimson robe again. I crushed this feeling mercilessly. I have more important things to do. Song Xiaoya is about to graduate from high school, and the calamity of the Jiang family's extermination should be coming soon. Lin Shui is dead at the same time as in her previous life, only the manner of death is different. In her previous life she died in sorrow, clutching Sun Xiaoya's hand with her last breath and weakly saying, "Brother Xiaoya, don't blame Shui." But in this life she was killed by Jiang Helen with his own hands. The news arrived while I was drawing my eyebrows. Chu Shua rushed in frantically, her face deathly pale. "Miss, the young mistress has passed." "Oh, how did he die?" I continued drawing my eyebrows. Today's arches looked particularly lovely. They say he got into an argument with the young master and hit his head on the corner of a table. I slowly curved my lips into a smile, just as I thought last night. Qin Shoa sent a message saying that Lin Shui had discovered the woman Jiang Helen was keeping outside and personally let people to her door, beating the girl half to death. When Jiang Helen returned to the residence, the two erupted into a fierce argument. "Do you still think you're that high and mighty, Miss Lin Shui? Jiang Helen, how did you beg to marry me back then? Had I known it would come to this, I should never have married you. You'll never compare to Brother Xiaoya." Amid the argument, Jiang Helen shoved her to the ground. Lin Shui slammed heavily against the sharp corner of the pearwood table. Blood splattered across the floor. And my dear brother didn't even glance back as he turned and walked away. By the time the maid found her, her body had already turned cold. In her past life, Lin Shui remained the white moonlight in the hearts of Song Xiaoya and Sun Heling until her death. When she passed away from illness, Sun Xiaoya held her lifeless body. His eyes red as he said to me, "Jiang Shuren, you owe her for this lifetime. My elder brother Jiang Heling even beat me half to death in his madness. Jiang Shuren, it was all her fault that she died. Everyone blames me." And now her body was hastily collected. And even the mourning hall was set up punctually. Officially, it was announced as death from illness. After all, Lin Shui had always been frail and sickly. As for that maidservant, she had long descended to the underworld. Perfect indeed. I stood beneath the corridor, leisurely cracking melon seeds between my teeth. The news of Song Xiaoya achieving the top honors in the imperial examinations reached Jinling, and overnight the Song household became the center of bustling activity. Matchmakers wore out the threshold with their visits, and portraits of eligible young ladies from prominent families piled up in the Song family's main hall. Madame Song couldn't stop smiling, telling everyone she met, "Our Xiaoya has been brilliant since childhood. Now that his name shines on the golden list, it's all thanks to our ancestors' blessings." But I knew all too well what venom lay beneath that kindly facade. In his previous life, shortly after Xia entered high school, his mother couldn't wait to push women into his room. She drugged Xiaoya, then also drugged and sent her delicate niece Lu Ruyan into his chamber. When Xia awoke, he flew into a rage. "Mother, what is the meaning of this?" Mother Song turned to me calmly. "Shuren arranged this. She said she was afraid she wouldn't serve you well enough." I was left speechless, unable to defend myself. Xia let out a cold laugh and ordered someone to bring a bowl of medicine. "Since you're so fond of drugging people, why not try it yourself?" The medicine was extremely potent. My entire body burned with fever, and I made a complete fool of myself, all while Mother Song stood by. Smiling benevolently, Shuarine said, "A woman should prioritize chastity and composure. Such wanton behavior from you would make for unpleasant gossip if it spread in this lifetime." Before Xiaoya had even returned home, his mother had already begun arranging his marriage. I stood in the tea house across from the Song residence, watching coldly as matchmakers came and went. "Young mistress, let's go back." "Let's go," Chu Shua whispered in a low voice. I chuckled lightly. "What's the hurry? The real show has only just begun." "Xia, aren't you the most filial son in this lifetime? I'm determined to drive a wedge between you and your mother." I ordered people to spread the news. The eldest daughter of the Wang family is gentle and virtuous, bringing prosperity to her husband, perfectly suited to marry a top scholar. Indeed, it took less than a day. Madame Song couldn't wait any longer and promptly sent a matchmaker with generous gifts to the Wang residence. "Madame Wang, your daughter is graceful and virtuous. If she were to marry into our Song family, it would surely be Xiaoya's great fortune." Lady Wang couldn't stop smiling and immediately agreed to the marriage arrangement. See ya, Xiaoya. Let's see how you'll live happily ever after with your beloved. 1 month later, Xia returned to his hometown in glory. The streets of Jinling stood empty as all its citizens flocked to catch a glimpse of the top scholar's grandeur. Clad in crimson official robes, he rode atop a towering steed, his beauty ethereal as a banished immortal, silk sleeves fluttering from every balcony and invitation. Only upon returning to his residence did Song Xiaoya learn his marriage had been arranged. He stood in the main hall, his face dark with fury. "Mother, what do you mean by this?" Madame Song smiled as she handed him the betrothal card. "The Wang family's daughter is dignified and virtuous. A perfect match for you. I won't marry her." "Nonsense." Madame Song slammed the table and rose to her feet. "Marriage is decided by parental orders and matchmakers' words. How dare you act so willfully?" Sun Xiaoya let out a cold laugh, his gaze sweeping over the room full of betrothal gifts before finally settling on his mother's face. "Do you really think this can force me to submit?" The night was deep, candle shadows flickering red with a light tap on the window lattice. Qin Shiza flipped inside, his crimson robe stirring a faint breeze. I was removing hairpins before the mirror when the bronze reflection caught his figure reclining lazily on the daybed. Lips curved in a smile, eyes dark and profound. "Miss Jiang seems quite at leisure these days since we last met." I deliberately didn't turn around, continuing to comb my long hair by myself. He chuckled softly, suddenly embracing me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder as his warm breath brushed past my ear. "You heartless little thing." His slender fingers lightly tapped my nose, carrying a hint of helpless affection. "I'm completely at your mercy now. Xia sent people to investigate the Wang family." He suddenly spoke up, twirling a strand of my hair around his finger. "Should I step in?" I raised an eyebrow and shook my head. "Let him investigate. Aren't you afraid he'll find out you're the one stirring up trouble in the mirror?" My crimson lips curved slightly. "So what if he does? Would he dare break off the engagement?" The Wang family is a prominent noble house in Jinling, and their eldest daughter is the emperor's most favored consort Shu. No matter how much Song Xiaoya hates me, would he dare gamble his official career on spite? Qin Shou's eyes darkened as he suddenly turned me around, his thumb brushing against my lips. "You're even more ruthless than I imagined." I bit his finger lightly. "What? Scared now?" He abruptly seized my wrist and pressed me down into the embroidered quilt, his breath scorching. "Afraid? I like it even more." Late at night, the Jiang residence was engulfed in flames. I stood in the shadows watching coldly as the bandits smashed through the gates, blades glinting with blood. Screams and wails tore through the night sky. This was a different time from my past life. Yet the same slaughter, only this time I was prepared. I deliberately delayed for a quarter hour before leading my men to storm the main courtyard. Father lay in a pool of blood, his right foot severed clean at the ankle, his face as pale as paper. Mother huddled in the corner, her gaze vacant, murmuring, "Helen! Helen!" over and over. And my dear brother Jiang Helen, his throat slit wide open, the terror frozen in his wide staring eyes. The same death as in my previous life. Another gang of bandits had kidnapped the Wang family's daughter. Qin Shou vaulted over the wall and arrived. I swung onto my horse, a cold smile curling at the corner of my lips. After them. The night wind howled. The thunder of hooves shook the earth. Crouched low over my horse, the icy wind lashed at my cheeks, yet couldn't quell the memories surging through my mind. In my past life, when Xiaoya passed the imperial exams, I followed him to the capital. All noble ladies in the capital can ride and shoot. You can't even do this. You'd shame me if I took you out. He stood by the horse track, watching coldly as I fell from the horse time and again, gritting my teeth. I struggled to my feet, the insides of my thighs rubbed raw, scabs forming only to break again. It wasn't until thick calluses formed on my legs that I finally learned to ride. Qin Shou had somehow caught up, his crimson robes ghostly in the moonlight. "You knew something would happen tonight?" "Just a guess." I cracked the whip to speed up. "Bandits always target wealthy households, don't they?" He chuckled softly and didn't press further. Outside the mountain stronghold, flames lit up the sky. The soldiers holding torches surrounded the mountain stronghold on all sides. Standing in the corner, I pointed to the low wall in the northeast corner. That's the weakest point in their defense. Chinsho stood beside me. Hearing this, his eyes flickered slightly, but he asked nothing. He went straight to the prefect, whispered a few words, and the prefect immediately ordered, "Attack the northeast corner." The moment the soldiers broke through the wall, the sound of elegant string and wind instruments unexpectedly drifted from the mountain stronghold. A beauty in red lazily reclined on a tiger skin chair, twirling a strand of the Wang family girl's hair around her fingertip. "Oh, you've arrived so quickly." She was breathtakingly beautiful, her brows and eyes like a painting, her skin whiter than snow. The crimson robe she wore made her appear both flamboyant and dangerous. The Wang family's daughter knelt trembling at her feet. And she, carefree yet in complete control, I stood behind the crowd watching her quietly. So this was the woman who had stirred Xiaoya's heart. Indeed, no ordinary beauty. In his past life, Xiaoya had been captured by bandits while traveling to the capital for the imperial examinations. The female bandit Henggu had taken a liking to him at first sight. At that time, Xiaoya still had Lin Shui in his heart and refused to yield, even at the cost of death, until Lin Shui died. He was convinced the Zhang family had killed her, consumed by overwhelming hatred. So he agreed to Henggu's terms. "Destroy the Zhang family for me, and I'm yours to do with as you please." On the night the Zhang household was slaughtered, he stood in the pool of blood, watching Henggu's triumphant smile, and suddenly realized no one in this world understood him better than she did. But Henggu was, after all, a bandit, a wanted criminal by imperial decree. Xiaoya had achieved scholarly honors and entered court service. How could he marry a female outlaw? He began to scheme. He orchestrated an assassination attempt on Princess Fuyang, then arranged for Henggu to coincidentally save her. The life-saving grace was enough to cleanse her reputation. That day, dressed in plain white, Henggu knelt before the emperor, pitiful and pleading. This humble woman swears upon her life never to be involved with bandits again. The emperor, greatly pleased, pardoned her of all crimes. Xiaoya looked at her meek and submissive appearance, suddenly recalling how she had slashed a traitor's throat that night, laughing wildly. Only then did he realize that the one he had always loved was that bold and unrestrained Henggu. But in this lifetime, because of my scheming, Henggu appeared ahead of time. Xiaoya has lost an arm. Let's see how he climbs to high office in this lifetime. Red Sister has escaped from prison. The news reached me as I was sipping tea, nearly making me choke. Seems no prison can hold her. The broken engagement between the Wang and Song families became the talk of the town. Though the abduction of the Wang family's legitimate daughter wasn't openly discussed, rumors had already spread far and wide. They say that a bandit was sent by Song, the top scholar. No wonder they were in such a hurry to call off the engagement. Guilty conscience furious. Minister Wang openly impeached Sun Xiaoya in court. Though he never named names, every word of his accusation was loaded with insinuation. No one expected that on the very afternoon Sun Xiaoya called off his engagement, he would arrive at the Zhang family's doorstep with betrothal gifts in tow. I sat in the main seat of the hall, watching coldly as he stepped into the room, his moon-white robe flowing, his expression calm and composed. "Shuren." He slightly cupped his hands, his voice cool and detached. "I come today to propose marriage." A collective gasp echoed through the hall of servants. I leisurely set down my teacup. "Lord Song, have you forgotten? My brother's body is barely cold, and your beloved Shui has just died. Yet here you are rushing to marry me." His eyes darkened slightly, fingers digging into his palms. "Guards." I suddenly slammed the table. "Throw these things out." The servants rushed forward in a crowd, throwing all those silks, satins, gold, and jewels out the main gate. Sun Xiaoya stood rooted to the spot, his fingers in his sleeves clenched so tightly they turned white. "Zhang Shuren, you'll regret this." I sneered. "Son, who the hell do you think you are? Make me regret it." Sun Xiaoya left Jinling to take up his post in the capital. A month later, Qin Shouza and I arrived leisurely in the capital. As Princess Fang's ceremonial procession returned to the capital outskirts after prayers, assassins suddenly ambushed from the dense forest, arrows aimed straight at the royal carriage. At the critical moment, Qin Shouza and I charged out on horseback. He swung his sword to deflect the cold arrows while I yanked the princess to safety, narrowly avoiding a fatal strike. In his past life, Sun Xiaoya used this very trick to cleanse Honggu's reputation. This time, I'll make him choke on his own scheme. The secret letter found on the assassin's corpse bore handwriting identical to Sun Xiaoya's memorials. I was the one who planted it there. The emperor was furious and immediately issued an edict for his arrest. But when the officers stormed the Song residence, the place was deserted, with only a still warm cup of tea left on the table. It wasn't until I arrived in the capital that I learned Qin Shouza was the youngest son of the Jianghua general's household, the imperial nephew of the current empress. Back then, he had publicly beaten the third prince in the streets of the capital, forcing his family to hastily send him to Jinling overnight to avoid trouble. Standing before the general's mansion, I clenched my sleeves tightly. What am I, a destitute family's legitimate daughter? What right do I have to match the heir of a military household? Yet who could have known? The moment my name card was presented, firecrackers suddenly erupted thunderously from within the estate. The old general strode out with vigorous steps and slapped Qin Shouza so hard that he staggered back 2 paces. You rascal finally managed to trick a wife into marrying you. Then he turned to me with a face full of wrinkles from smiling. Don't be scared, girl. This troublemaker's notorious in the capital. Women cross the street to avoid him. Madame Qin wiped her tears while slipping a bracelet onto my wrist. Buddha be praised. This little demon king is finally getting married off. Wait, no. Finally, someone's willing to take this little demon king off our hands. Me in the tea house, the storyteller was vividly narrating. At 7, young Master Qin burned down the Imperial Academy. At 10, he beat up a Shongyu envoy until he cried. At 15, he broke the third prince's ribs over a singing girl. Qin Shouza suddenly kicked over the tea table. That bastard was clearly harassing a common girl. The banquet hall emptied as guests scattered like frightened birds and beasts. I pressed my hand to my forehead and finally understood. It wasn't that the Qin family looked down on me. Rather, no one else dared to marry him except me. The idol prince rebelled, his troops pressing against Banyan City. The Qin family was ordered to march, and I followed with the army. In my past life, Sun Xiaoya had taken me to the battlefield with him. On the eve of victory, I was captured by the rebels, and he personally shot an arrow through my heart. He said, Zhang Shuren, as long as you live, I cannot marry Honggu with a grand wedding procession. But in this life, I want him to pay in blood. The scout reported that Sun Xiaoya had become an advisor to the idol prince, and Honggu was also among the rebels. In the previous life, Sun Xiaoya was the one who quelled the chaos. But in this life, he has become the rebel. How laughable. At the foot of Rang City, the Qin army advanced with unstoppable force, and the rebel troops retreated in defeat. Standing at the top of the city wall, I coldly watched the fleeing enemy forces. And then I saw Sun Xiaoya. His blood-stained white robe stood out starkly amid the chaotic battlefield. He raised his head, his gaze locking onto me like a venomous serpent, a twisted smile curling at the corner of his lips. Zhang Shuren, he shouted sharply, his voice piercing through the battlefield. Do you think you've won, idiot? I slowly raised the bow in my hand, knocked the arrow and drew the string, just as he had done to me in our past life. The arrow split the air, whistling as it flew. Sun Xiaoya's pupils abruptly constricted, his face contorting with an expression of horrified disbelief. So it turned out he could feel fear too. So it turned out he could feel pain too. The moment the arrowhead pierced his heart, his expression froze. Hongzhou broke through the chaos of the battlefield and caught Sun Xiaoya's falling body. She looked up at me, her eyes free of hatred, filled only with relief. Then she drew her dagger and plunged it into her own heart. In the end, she chose to follow him in death. What right does Xiaoya have? What a foolish woman. Qin Shouya stood by my side, silently grasping my hand. It's over, he said. I gazed at the corpses beneath the city walls and suddenly laughed. Yes, it's over. My hatred, my obsession, all vanished like smoke with this single arrow. On the day the army returned victorious to the capital, the first snow began to fall. Qin Shouya waited for me at the end of the long street, the brightly decorated gates of the Qin family residence glowing behind him. Zhang Shuren. He smiled and extended his hand toward me. Welcome home. I gripped his hand tightly and stepped into the swirling snow. In this lifetime I can finally live for myself. I did not stay in the capital. After quelling the rebellion, I returned to Jinling with the loyalty of the Jiang family's old troops. In this life I refuse to be anyone's wife or anyone's pawn. I will be the master of the Jiang family, the ruler of my own destiny. Within 2 years the banners of the Jiang trading house spread across the land. Silk, tea, salt, iron shipping. My business reached the western regions and the southern seas. In my past life I learned accounting to please Song Xiaoya, and now it's made me the wealthiest around. The equestrian and archery skills I practiced to survive in my past life now protect me through mountains and valleys. Every spring and autumn, I personally escort supplies to the frontier. The soldiers of the Qin family army always greet me with smiles, calling out, "Chief Jiang." On the 5th year start of spring, Qin Shoa took off his armor and rode alone to Jinling. He barged into my accounting room and slammed the tiger tally on the table. "Jiang Shueran, I'm done being a general." I kept clicking the abacus without looking up. "Oh, so what do you want to do?" He snatched my account book away and leaned in close. "Be your husband." 3 days later, Jinling City was adorned with lanterns and decorations. Not for Miss Jiang marrying into a military family, but for Head Jiang taking General Qin's son as her groom. The bridal sedan arrived at the gate, drawing crowds from all over the city to watch the spectacle. Dressed in crimson robes, Qin Shoa sat astride his horse, sneering at the girls tossing handkerchiefs his way. "What are you staring at? Never seen a man get married before." He remained as unrestrained as during our first meeting. The following year our son Anan was born. Qin Shoa was so overjoyed he danced around, spending 3 days and nights thinking of a name. 5 years later, our merchant fleet discovered a new island overseas. A new journey was about to begin.